Hi everyone, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And today we have the really amazing David Good with us, and he is so cool. We just kind of met through the Go Giver Alliance. It's a small network set up by Bob Berg, who's the author of The Go Giver, which is a super amazing book. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but I've also talked about it in the past. David is really super cool, and he's what is known as the international friend. And I'd love for him to share a little bit about, what does that mean? Because he is really amazing with setting up meetups. So, David, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Really glad to be here. Always like to help someone out.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. And you told me before we get started that a lot of people love to refer to you as the international friend. And I would love for you to kind of explain a little bit more about, what does that mean and why do people kind of call you that?
So basically, the one of the greatest lessons I've learned in life is that when everything gets taken away from you, you have nothing left but your ability to be a good friend. And
Hmm.
if you focus on that, you can make a lot of things happen.
Yeah, that's really great. That's actually so true. There have been so many times when I've gone through something and I know I couldn't have done it as well as I did without that support with someone.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, one of the keys to getting the life you want is to have a lot of friends and being a good friend and finding people that are good friends for you.
Yeah. Well, David, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey and how has that, impacted you throughout the years and how did you kind of come to where you are today?
Sure, give a kind of a quick summary. So I was born autistic. I was always the really weird kid, but I was always extremely bright, doing kind of oddball, like really impressive things in school. Like
Hmm.
when I was 14, I had this guy who was a director for a directorate at the Pentagon consult on a science project that I did. And one day the high school got a call from the Pentagon. The principal came running out to gym class, and he was like, "Oh, David Good's got a call from the Pentagon." So, and this was like way back in the early '90s, before the internet and everything like that. But yeah, so I was always really bright and everything, and a really good student. And like I started my first business doing websites when I was 16, when not many other people knew how to build websites, and it was kind of interesting. I found I could build one website in a weekend and make like more money than working McDonald's for like 3 months. So I quit McDonald's and did websites when I was in high school. But yeah, so long story short, I got really sick and had to go on disability, kind of had my whole life taken away from me, my business and everything. And then I got injured in a car accident, which made it hard to work at a computer. And so I've been on disability a long time. Culminated last time I was a software developer was in like 2016, 2015. I kind of pushed myself too much, exacerbated that neck injury, and now I can't work on the computer at all. But I've just had like some neck surgeries, and coming up, hopefully, I'll be able to get back to being on the computer doing websites and things. But so I went through a bad relapse of depression. Oh, this was like 2011 after some deaths in the family, and found a new type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. I was not a people person at all. Being autistic, people skills don't come naturally to me. I'm lucky though. I have the ability to like look people in the eye and kind of relate with people a little bit, but I just could not figure out people for the life of me. And I was severely bullied, so I thought all people were awful. After I
Hmm.
went on disability, I kind of hid myself behind a computer for many years, being ashamed of myself until I had that bad relapse and got the new therapist. And then I discovered Meetup and started going to Meetup groups and realized there were a lot of awesome people out there. I was inspired to start my first group, West Michigan Geeks, in 2014, and then another group for introverts and shy people in 2016. By 2019, we had like four marriages in the group, four engagements and marriages in the group. That was totally surprising. And people were like, "Oh yeah, these groups are great. They're helping us out a lot, and you're doing a lot for the community." But then what happened was when COVID hit, it like took everything I'd worked for away. And
Hmm.
so we were trying to meet at parks and things like that. And then November of 2020 hit, and I'm like, so with my severe depression, my treatment resistant depression, I don't know how I'm going to get through that winter not being able to see people face to face, because learning how to make friends and having something altruistic in my life where I'm serving others is one of the best treatments that I've found for my depression. And it helped me find a purpose after my software development career was taken away from me by
Hmm.
injury. And that again, what I said was in an earlier podcast I've been on was that once you have everything taken away from you, the only thing left that you can be is to be a good friend and focus on what you can do for others and how how you treat other people. And so I decided to give that a try to see and to learn people skills. And so I started reading a ton of books. And Bob's series of books, the Go Giver series of books, was what kind of unlocked an understanding about people for me that I was missing before. I read about like 80
Mhm.
self-development and business books, and those really stuck out for me, kind of put it in perspectives that kind of convinced me that this was the right way to go. But anyhow, 2020, November 2020 came around, and so I was saying like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to get through the winter of this COVID lockdown. And I'm like, I bet a lot of people are in the same position. You keep reading about how lockdown was so bad for people's mental health and everything, and people who never had depression before were suddenly struggling with their mental health. So I bought a Zoom account. I created a new group on Meetup called Let's End Loneliness. And so we started doing Zoom meetings, and I started getting people from all over the world, Australia and Japan and India and all over the United States. And then more people started coming. Well, then COVID got a little bit better in the summer, so we pivoted, renamed ourselves International Friend Connection, and started opening up more groups in more cities. And now today we're in let's see, 28 cities around the
Wow.
world, and we have 36 groups total in the family, and we'll get up to like 80 people in a meeting. And this is just
Wow.
all a free service I do. I'm probably one of the last altruistic people alive, but and I haven't figured out how to monetize it, but I keep doing it because it gives me a purpose in life. And a lot of people, the thing that a lot of people confided in me that once things got better, they're like you can't really stop doing these meetings, because a lot of us wouldn't be alive today if we didn't find these meetings during COVID, because we were locked in our apartments in like New York or in Sydney, Australia, or in Tokyo, and we were able to see people face to face, and that face to face contact got us through that COVID lockdown. So that's
Mhm.
kind of more or less the whole story of the International Friend Connection.
Wow, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
I would love to know, especially when it comes to like I deal with pretty bad like anxiety, right? And
Yeah,
talking to people, it's like a twofold because I love people, I love talking to people. I love getting into conversations, learning about people, but I am terrified to approach people. It is so difficult for me to like just start that initial conversation, and sometimes that beginning of the conversation is so deathly terrifying to me because I'm like, I don't know what the right way to talk to you yet is, right? Do you have any tips for someone who's like
yeah.
would love to
So
talk to people more but is kind of scared?
yeah, and I help every Monday. We do an event for people with social anxiety, and I have groups in two parts of Michigan that help people with social anxiety. We got a group in Ann Arbor that's going really well, run by my organizer named Mizuho. And
Oh.
I'll tell you Mizuho's story. So Mizuho came to my Zoom meetings, and I always say I say hi to everybody when they come. They got to show their face on camera, so I know that they're not here to cause problems. And then I asked them where they're from. And so when I asked her where she was from, she was going to hang up because her social anxiety is so bad. All her life, her social anxiety, barely not didn't have too many friends because she was so afraid to talk to people. But 3 months after coming to the meetings and practicing kind of the skills that I teach people about, practicing talking to people in the meetings, she was like, "Hey, I'd like to start a group in Ann Arbor because I want to help people with their social anxiety and their shyness." And so she did one meeting, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to come over. I'm going to help you out with the first meeting, and then you'll be good to go. So 24 people came to walk out in the rain in Ann Arbor in the Arboretum there. And then now she's doing meetings every Thursday, and she gets like 20, 25 people at every meeting. And before that, she didn't have any friends, but she just had a birthday event. And 20 people showed up at the restaurant, brought her all kind of cards and flowers and everything, and just told her how much they appreciate her doing the work. And so she's feeling really good about herself, and she's gaining a measure of confidence by helping others. And working on your social anxiety, it's just a matter of trying and putting yourself out there and finding a safe place that you can practice your
Hmm.
social skills. Also, a book that helped me, I think it was called How to Talk to Anyone by Lyle Lound. It has a lot of different
Hmm.
tricks in that one. That's something good, but it's a matter of just practicing. And then like acceptance and commitment therapy teaches a lot of techniques like diffusion techniques and things like that that'll help you kind of deal with that anxiety. There's also mindfulness meditations you can do And what those focus on, those mindfulness meditations, you want to look for the ones that focus on tolerating discomfort so that you can
Mm,
have your anxiety, or you can be in pain like I am when a migraine hits me, one that's like not severe where I'm bedridden, but you can have that anxiety, you can be in pain, but you can go do things anyways because you have those diffusion skills and you have that toleration, or you have those meditations that help you tolerate being uncomfortable. So you're uncomfortable, but you go do it anyways.
yeah,
And
that's
then
really great.
it's just a matter of practice. It's like I heard the
Hmm.
analogy, it's like a video game. Like every time you do a task in a video game, you get a little bit of experience. So every time in life, when you make yourself do something despite the anxiety, you're gaining a little bit of experience. And the more experience you get, the more you're going to level up with that social anxiety. And it may never go away completely, because I'll tell you a story. So I did thousands of Zoom meetings, and I did hundreds of in-person meetings. So my first in-person meeting I hosted, I shook the whole time, barely said a word, and but people had a fun time anyway. So I forced myself to keep doing it because other people relied on me. One thing, if you have a responsibility to other people, it kind of forces you to push yourself past your comfort levels. So because you have a duty to help those other people. And but I went to an event the other night that I did not host that was full of strangers. And man, I was so nervous. I still had the shakes after doing hundreds of meetings, hosting hundreds of meetings, and hosting thousands of Zoom meetings. I still had the shakes being around those people and those same thoughts like, oh no, those people aren't gonna like me. And I'm so nervous here. I just want to go home. But I used my techniques to stay there until the meeting was over, and then I went home, and I consider that a win. As long as I'm able to stay, be uncomfortable, I consider that gaining experience, and that I consider that a win.
Yeah, that's definitely a really great tip, and I think I really loved what you mentioned about tolerating discomfort because
Yeah,
I think there's just a lot of focus sometimes on eliminating it, and then
yeah,
it's so much harder, and then you just feel like you can't because you're like, I can't fully not feel anxious, and it's like, yeah, you don't have to as long as you're able to kind of go through that discomfort and just kind of sit with it and make sure that okay, I can still do this even though it's like a little bit uncomfortable for me, it's still tolerable. I can still go through it and I can have a good time at the end of it. So,
yeah.
in these last few minutes before we wrap up, I'd love to know, is there any advice that you give to yourself, maybe in the past, looking back, or maybe just some advice that you've learned, since being 17, 18, that you'd like to give to other 17, 18-year-olds out there?
Yeah, so if I had to do things over, so my very second client I had was a guy named Dave Miller, and he had a company called Grant Share, and he went on to build this huge company with hundreds of employees, a very valuable company. And when I was like 17, he said to me, Dave, you want to make a lot of money, you got to study two things, marketing and accounting.
Mm,
And you got to know how to sell what you're making, and know how to keep track of what you have. And I didn't follow that advice because I always thought, oh, I can get by and just knowing how to program and do websites and things like that. And and those soft skills, those people skills weren't important. So if I had to do it all over again, I would go to community college. I'd get associate's degree in business because it's cheap. Focus on those marketing classes and those sales classes, and focus on those people skills more than your technical skills.
mm,
Because like now I realize the money's made when you sell a project, not when you do a project. And
yeah,
so your sales skills are and your marketing skills will make you a lot more money than your technical skills. The difference between a programmer that makes $50 an hour and $1,000 an hour is pretty much, usually the $1,000 an hour program is more skilled, but he's also a lot better at sales and marketing.
yeah. That's a
So
really
I
great tip.
would get that degree in that associate's degree in business because it's cheap, and then I would get then I would do like a programming boot camp or something if I wanted to get into software development. But those people skills, those soft skills, will make you a lot more than your technical skills will. And it
Yeah.
does require personal transformation if people skills don't come naturally to you. You've got to learn to appreciate every single person you meet, even if they're not that nice to you. You got to appreciate the lesson that they're going to teach you.
That's a really great point. You have to also appreciate their differences, especially because there's
Yeah,
just so many different ways to communicate and there's so many different ways to talk to people that you really have to understand, like, okay, I would never like do something like this. Like I would never talk at this speed, but I can
yeah,
appreciate that she does. And as long as I can understand her at the end of the day, that is what matters. And as long as we can both get along on some kind of mutual foot, that is all that matters for that people
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah, I
So
found what you have in life depends on pretty much your communication and relationship skills.
yeah. Well, thank you. That is a really great tip. And I especially loved when you mentioned, that it's not just the project, it's selling the project that's going to make you
Yeah.
the money at the end of the day. That's a really powerful line. So thank you, David, so much for the time that you've given me today. I have just had a blast, and there's been so much that you said that has really resonated with me. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
your time
welcome.
today.
Really, it was a real privilege to be able to help you out today and be on your podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Talk soon.